the back. Evening, brothers and sisters. Welcome to the house of the Lord. We usually have more, but the weather may be holding down our attendance a little bit tonight. Our order of service tonight will be a discussion on the pavilion that's been recommended by the building committee. No, I know, Janet. And then Larry will be conducting the budget discussion for next year's budget. So I've asked Brunetta to offer our invocation. Sister?
Awesome Heavenly Father, you are so good, and you are so mighty, and you are so able. Father, I hold this group of people up to you for our decisions, that we might think what you would want done, that we would think righteously, that we would be responsibly able to look forward. Father, I pray for Larry as he leads this meeting, that he might have clarity of thought, that he might be able to bring those things that he might desire for us to consider. These things I pray in your most holy and righteous name. Amen.
Thank you, Sister. I think, I know for a fact that the building committee has been discussing various priorities for the branch in terms of building improvements and whatnot for some time. I believe even last year at this meeting there was a discussion about a pavilion that would be placed out here. We met again a couple of weeks ago, and once again the committee set that as a priority for the branch. But I felt like, despite the fact that it has been discussed by the branch before, it has never been discussed in enough detail for the branch to make a decision on whether that's what they want to invest their money in or not. And it should be a branch decision to do that. So really, I'm going to ask Bill to do a lot of the presentation, if he will. He's chairman of the building committee. And Bill, why don't you come up and just educate us on what the proposal is. And then we'll have discussion, then we'll have a vote.
Well, special projects are items that we want to consider which are outside the budget that we would like to accomplish. And last year, one of them was the picnic pavilion, which would sit out here between the playground and the tractor garage. And we are looking at, Rich, I don't know if you have those pictures. Yeah, there they are. Okay. These are pictures of a, it's a building that they would come in and set on our concrete pad and install it. And we're looking at a 30-foot by 40-foot with one end enclosed. That end would be next to the fence, or close to the fence on the north side. So with the concrete slab, Colin Madej and some of his associates said that they can do that part. Chris Sperry said that he could excavate it for us. And with those items in place, that would cost about $8,500 for the concrete slab. And this carport installed would be $10,537. And we would want to make some picnic tables to sit in there, and we want to trench over there with water and electric. And so the total cost would be just over $20,000. We had suggested $25,000 last year when we brought it up, so we're well under that amount. Do you have any questions about that facility? Bob?
I don't know that it's a big item, but would the city require any water remediation if we were to do this on our property, Bill?
Water remediation? As far
A retention pond of some kind to keep the water?
No, it would only be shedding the water that we normally get in that area, so it wouldn't be extra, it wouldn't be any extra.
Are the mountains included?
Yeah. Yes, Margaret?
You said there's a special project. Does that
Right.
mean it's in the budget, or this is something separately we give money to?
Let
Oh.
Pam answer that.
No, it's not. No, it's not in the budget. It's in the special projects fund that everybody donates to said special projects. And right now, we have $23,000 in that fund. So we have enough money in the fund to do this.
It's possible we could get it done even yet this year, but depending on the weather, so. The funds carry over, yeah. Janet?
I love the idea of a picnic pavilion, but I'm also concerned with what we had heard from what was given to Richard Neal and the State of the Union of our place, and so many needs in our branch. This is a fun thing, but I can't help but be concerned with the needs of the people. And I feel like this is a luxury item when someone else maybe is struggling financially or for food or the basic house repairs that are needed. So I'm wondering if this is the best use of our funds for our branch.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Vaughn, but these funds were designated specifically for special projects. And if we were going to do anything other than that, the branch would have to vote to defer these funds to something else because the branch donated them to this specific item.
That's correct, but consider the budget of 2024. We have potentially budgeted $40,000 in special project funds. So if we didn't do the pavilion, we have $40,000 in the budget that those funds could be used for. So it's not as if we don't have other things that are on our list to use the funds for. So it's not like there's not other things that could be done that are within the building if we didn't do that pavilion.
So you're saying we could defer the special projects fund to the building fund if the branch voted on that?
Yes, because those are projects within the branch, so we could do that. Frankly, the branch could do anything it wants. So if the branch approved the budget and wanted to utilize the special projects funds to fund those within the budget, they could do that. Or we could do that, sorry.
The money is in the special projects fund. It can only be used for special projects because the branch designated that's where it would go.
What is a special project?
That's what we have listed last year. This was one of them. One of them was a parking lot. There are several things that were listed as special projects that people have donated towards. But if the branch decides that that's not what they want to do anymore and they want to transfer or defer or whatever these special funds to something different, they can as a branch, but we can't do it without branch approval.
So at a meeting such as this.
Right. Right, Vaughn?
I guess I have a comment. You know, I like this and my family would use it, but I would really like to see the parking lot get paved or even an additional parking lot, because there are so many times when trucks and everybody is parking on the grass on the other side of the trees of the parking lot. Can we make additional parking there that would be easier and safer maybe to get around with when the kids are going to the playground and people are trying to leave and come to church and stuff?
The parking lot would be another special project that we would suggest, and it's going to be about $125,000 to pave this parking lot. So that would have to be worked on, you know, probably over several years.
The other thing with the parking lot is once we put a parking lot out there, we're going to have to do something to convert water. We're going to have to build what they call diversion ditches and things like that to handle the water that's running off of the parking lot as well, or put in some kind of a drainage system that goes into the city sewer system, which is also going to cost a bunch more money.
I know it seems like a luxury for us right now, but I can see that it would be helpful if we want to invite neighbors that aren't comfortable coming inside, that we could have outdoor things, or even if things get bad, we can feed people outside. So I don't think it's all luxury.
I'm on the same page as Becky. I agree that it does sound like a bit of a luxury item, but I can also see all the benefits for, like, we have had plenty of events where we invited other congregations to come and worship with us outdoors, and trying to get people up and down on the uneven ground for eating can be a little bit unsafe with some of our older brothers and sisters, and having some place like this to set up for the meals would provide some extra. Admittedly, getting to and from could still be a little interesting, but once they're there, they're safely there, kind of thing. That this could be good in that way, as well as, like, if we had a campfire scheduled and then the rain comes in, then we've got a place that we can still be outside to do it. And I can see a lot of benefits to this, that it's not necessarily just a luxury item.
Sarah?
I have no opinion, but I will say, someone mentioned to me earlier the concern about potential overnight visitors that might take advantage of a shelter like this. And so that's just something to consider, that there may be a security issue or, you know, something like that. So I'm just throwing that out there just as something to think about.
Joy, at the back.
I don't know if you've mentioned already, but we were talking with Rich earlier, and there would really need to be some sort of a separate sound system for out there to, you know, if it's more than a very small gathering, the sound will just go away. And so if there were, you know, a evening preaching service or whatever, or just fun things, it's going to be helpful to have some sort of sound. So that would be an additional cost. I feel like if you build it, you know, they will come kind of thing, and I think it would be used. But just wanted to throw that in there, that we need some sort of sound out there.
Dale?
I can't imagine water running through the gravel underground, so I would think it wouldn't be any different with concrete or asphalt than it is with rock. So I can't imagine that costing a whole lot more because of needing a retention pond or anything else, because water, gravel sheds water just like concrete or asphalt. So I can't personally imagine that they can demand such different things because of the parking lot existing as it is. So I would think that it would still remain the same.
Okay. Elsie?
Rick Gard and I did just a quick takeoff on this a few years back when I was pastor. And one of the things that we have is existing gravel parking lot. One of the things you don't have is city approval. If you go to pave it, then they come in and you have to have engineering, you have to have the water runoff, environmental reports, and they will require probably catch basins and retention so that all that water gathered in doesn't end up in somebody's backyard back here. So Rick and I, about, probably been 6-7 years ago, came up with about over 200,000 by the time everything got figured in. And so that was just an estimate at the time. We didn't do an exact takeoff of it. But there are, as soon as you decide to pave a lot, you get the city and the county and a lot of other agencies involved, and they all require engineering and a map. We could probably get in trouble for just what we did in the parking there, but we did that anyway. But when you do an area as large as that parking lot is, the gravel does spread it out and make it so that you don't run in a river until it gets down here by the corner. But with a parking lot, you don't have that, and it will run all at once, and then you've got problems with the properties along that back edge where that water ends up. And so, yeah, you will have to go to the county and the city and get those permits and then have all the engineering and a lot of stuff done. We went through the same thing out at when they built the church out at Grain Valley. And so, and that was out in the country, so they're going to be a lot more stringent here.
So Pam, if I understand, this a project has been budgeted and is funded in our account. Is that correct?
Correct.
For amount, Bill says $20,000. We've got $20,000 if we so choose. Okay. Any other comments? Joy? Or
Just a question, does the pavilion have to have city permission, and is there costs associated with that?
Elsie?
Permits? And
Yeah, anytime you're going to put up something of that size, the city's going to get involved. That's just an automatic. In a lot of places, the city requires a permit to redeck your deck outside or to add a patio. So if you're adding something that's size of 30 by 40, that's 1,200 square foot of covered space, the city's going to want that permitted and inspected and all the other things that go along with that.
My experience, I'm trying to think what it was we did, that we had to go to, our sign out here.
Oh, yeah.
We had to go to the city. You have to have plans, which I think Bill's got. You have to have plans to submit to the city, and you have to buy a permit, $500 maybe? I don't know, Joy, for sure. And that covers the inspections that they do before you build and as you're building. So I would say that it's not a terrible expense in addition to what we have budgeted, probably in my experience. Some expense. Any more comments before we take this to a vote? We'll be voting on whether or not we want to invest our special project funds in a 30 by 40, Bill? 30 by 40, 1,200 square foot covered pavilion, concrete base, for whatever purposes. I guess I probably have to have a motion and a second on that.
Well, I've got a couple reservations about this. Number one, from the drawings, I would be opposed to putting that backside covered for the simple fact that you create a security problem there because that's going to be back against the fence. So between the fence and that, you got a place for anybody to hide. You got children playing on the playgrounds right next to that, and you got a place back there where anybody could hide between the fence and that. I think that back edge should be open so you can see all the way to the fence. That's one reservation. The other reservation I have is I always look at dollars per use. And it's true that we do have some things outside, but I feel like the size of this and the amount of money we're putting into it would be a way overkill on the use that we would get out of it on a regular basis. When we talked about this last year, we didn't talk about sizes or anything else. We talked about just having a picnic pavilion. And I was thinking along the lines of 15 by 20, just enough so you could have a covered picnic area for a couple of families, 2 or 3 families, if they wanted to get together, come up and have their kids play on the playground, that you'd have a place to have a picnic and stay out of the sun, and that you would be able to utilize it more, or something of this size, I think is overkill for what we need. And we've got a facility in here. If you have a picnic like we have a couple times a year, that's a lot of money to put out so that you've got a smooth spot to set your tables. We've done it for 8 years that I know of without any problems. And even if you put this in, you're going to have the same problems with people getting from the parking lot to the pavilion. The ground's still going to be unlevel. I just think there's a lot of other things we could put our money to. Reduce the size of this to make it more practical and more usable more of the time for the amount of money that it's spent.
Back over here, Monica.
I don't have an opinion either way, but I do have a security question. If you put really, because we have them in our house, motion sensors on the back between the fence and this and all around it, would that help with the security breaches and the unwelcomed guests?
I didn't understand your question.
Motion detectors, would that help in the back? motion detectors behind it, would that help for security reasons?
Buck, do you have an answer to that, response to that?
If we put motion sensors on the back side of that, it's going to be going off 4 or 5 times a night from all of the rodents, such as raccoons and groundhogs and skunks and rabbits that will be running back there setting those motion sensors off. And I know the neighbors over there probably wouldn't be very happy to have them lights coming on and off all throughout the night, being
Becky.
their bedroom is right there.
Becky? Becky, and then back to Sarah.
Yeah, talking about the neighbors, that's my cousin, and they're not terribly excited about it going up. And put motion sensors on there and lights, no.
Sarah?
I'm being compelled to speak because when Devon Park had a shed and people would drive their cars into the parking lot and go behind the shed and do drug deals, and they would spray paint and things like that. So that's kind of like where I'm coming from, thinking about some of these security issues is that happened on a nightly basis. And so it's just something we do need to, keep in mind. I actually very much, when he said the thing about having that wall, that is just another element of a place where people can go. And, we have access right here in the parking lot where cars can pull up. And so it's, it's kind of a valid concern.
James?
So we know, we do have semi-security throughout the week here. Bruce Ludeman's office is up front, and he's watching the property throughout the week, so that's not a big issue. And then, of course, getting rid of that back panel, because I remember discussing that back wall, would be more idealistic for, you don't want people hiding back there. And if I remember right, the idea behind this, we host different parties out there throughout the year, and we would be moving all of those parties, whether it's the hay rides or the summer fun splash, out to that area for potluck type and style events. And if we want to have room for everybody, this was an appropriate size. We did talk about going bigger, but what was it, 60 by 40 or whatever, and which is like the size of Zion's Ridge, and that's just that is too big for what we really need for now.
Point of order. Elsie, did you have a point of order?
Well, yeah, I just wondered, and I don't have a copy of the bylaws with me, and I used to have them memorized, but it's been a number of years ago. The bylaws require a certain percentage of your people be present to take a vote, and I wonder if we have enough people here tonight to represent the branch in taking a vote of something of this magnitude. We've got, 25 people here out of a branch of about 150, and that seems a small quorum to vote on spending $20,000 or $25,000 of everybody's money on a special project, and that's just my point of order.
I think it's a point taken. I guess a counterpoint would be that we've been announcing this specifically what we were going to discuss and when we were going to discuss it. And, I guess people could have been here if they'd have wanted to be here. Janet?
Hey, Elsie, can you just, for my own peace of mind, how big, wait a minute, Bill, how big is this supposed to be?
It's about the same size as the playground that's out
Is the playground. So, Elsie, from like where that back wall, how far out? Give me for like a mind dimension. I'm
What are we, 50 foot across here, Bill?
We're 75.
I thought it was 70.
You're 25 on each day, and you're, 70 feet wide.
Across?
Okay, so from that wall back is how big? To the
About-
basketball goal?
about the basketball hoop, maybe a little in front of it, would be about 30 foot. And we're going 30 by 40. So that would be about where the line is on the picture up there. From that end out there. So it would be from there.
Right here to the basketball goal.
Yeah, this would be the corner, somewhere right in here. It would be that size there. Yeah, but it's hard to put it in perspective until you get it inside and realize what covered is.
Any more discussion? I know we haven't even started the budget meeting that we have tonight. Dale?
Yeah, what about kids playing on that? That's going to be a perfect place to come ride bicycles and have accidents and maybe drive cars around the way they like to squirrel around in the parking lot.
We have had people squirrel around in our gravel up here. I'm going to get a sign made that says church property, spinning tires prohibited.
Invitation to come up and spin your tires.
Unless we have objection, I just feel like this has been announced. It was announced that it was going to happen tonight, and I think we should probably move forward. Otherwise, we're going to have to schedule another business meeting and have this whole discussion again. I don't know. I mean, we could get Robert's rules all day long. Are we ready to vote on whether or not this is an up or a down? All in favor of funding this project in the near future, please show your hands. Keep them up. Alan's counting. Don't just count yourself, Alan. All opposed? How many were for? How many were for? There were more than 8 for it, weren't there?
I don't know.
Raise your hands if you're for again. Okay. Okay, 8. How many opposed? Fails. Okay. Brother, the meeting is yours.
On that note, let's get something going really exciting. In the short time that I've have known that I'm going to be pastor, I've learned a lot of things, and a lot of things that I do not know. One of them is the budget. So what I want to do, and I've talked to Pam's going to go through a basic budget 101 so that you guys would know what we're going to be voting on as far as the budget, and answer any questions that you have about that. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Pam.
Okay, if everybody looks at the paper that's marked Treasurer's Report, it is a Treasurer's Report, but it's more than that. It's basic 101 is what I would like everybody to understand, because I don't think there's a lot of people in the branch, in fact, the majority of people in the branch understand how the money is divided up. So this is what I would like you all to understand before we vote on the budget tonight. Okay, looking at this, first line is the total amount of funds we have in the bank right now. The $79,400 plus is what we have cash in the bank to spend. Okay. Now, under that, we have designated funds. If you look over to the right, it says envelope on the right column. Every one of those items that you check on the envelope goes to every one of these designated funds on the left. And as we talked about before under special projects, every one of these, when you donate to those funds go in that fund and stay in that fund unless the branch decides to move it somewhere else as a branch decision. So all of these funds listed under there total $74,397. That's what we have that is already in funds designated for all of these things that you have donated to already. So you see the difference between the bank amount we have and what you've designated for those funds is $5,000. That's what we run the rest of the branch on. So now skip down to the line that says budgeted items. Those are all of the things that we use to function as a branch outside of the designated funds above. So the administrative, the women's, the men's, the youth, the music, the technical, the activities, blah, 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 are all funded out of budgeted items. Over to the right, under envelopes, any money you give to tithing or general fund goes to pay all of these things. Now, if you do a quick little computer list, the amount of money that we have in those, let me tell you how I do this first. I divide it up. If your budget for the women's department, we'll just say is $1,000, I divide that up between the 52 weeks in the year. How much money you would have for your $1,000 budget. And so every week I put that amount on paper into that fund, so it's becoming available over the year to be used. So that's, just so you understand, that's how this is done, okay? So right now, all of these funds, based upon your budget, is what is in each one of those line items, which totals $13,000. Well, we only have $5,000. So we are $8,000 in the hole to fund the items that you had on the budget from last year that we have been putting in your. So what we do is rob Peter to pay Paul. Or you will come to me and you'll say, we have an activity. Do we have enough money in our budget right now to do that? Not in your budget. Do we have enough money in your account to be able to do that? Is what needs to be done, because we have been lucky, because a lot of these items, people who have, or groups, line items that have budgeted amounts, have not used their budgeted amount. So, do you understand what I'm saying? The overall thing, we have been able to pay for everything we've needed to pay for. But if everybody would come into me this month and say, hey, our activities, we've got $700 left in activities, we're going to blow it all on this, or I don't mean blow it. We're going to spend it all on this. So the music department says, we need to buy all of this music. We're going to spend all of our. If everybody would come into me this month and say, we're going to spend the rest of our budget this month, we couldn't do it. Because we're $8,000 short of what we need to fund our budget for last year, for this current year. So keep that in mind when we're doing the budget for next year. Okay. So we do have an operating reserve of $70,000. They suggest we have 6 months' worth. The $70,000 is about 5 months' worth of expenses, and that's what we have in an operating reserve. I have not put any money in it this year because we haven't had any extra money to put in it this year because of the minus $8,000 that you're seeing here. Ivan?
Two quick questions. Number one, is that operating reserve liquid?
I'm sorry.
Is that liquid? Is that like cash?
Liquid. Yes.
Okay, so we don't have it in CDs or something that would be hard to get to?
It's all in the bank.
Okay, so how come that's not listed as total funds in the bank then?
What are you asking? I don't understand.
Well, why don't you add the 70 to the 79 for total funds in the
Well, it
bank?
could be, but the operating reserve, the reason we have an operating reserve is in case we come into an emergency and something would happen to the building.
No, I know why you have it, but when we say total money in the bank, and it's only 79,000, that's not a true
Okay,
statement.
in our checking account, we have 79,000. Would that be better? I could put it.
That would be better.
Yeah, okay. You're right. It's 79,000 in our checking account.
Thank you.
Vaughn?
I like it the way it is. Because the 79,000 is what we're using in the current operating budget. The 70,000 is a reserve, which we have to vote on as to whether we would use it. So the 79,000 is the reserve that we're using, funds that we currently take in and spend. And as a branch, we would have to dip into the reserve by vote, as I would understand it.
Right.
And so we need to understand that we need to fund year by year rather than mix in funds that are not within the year that we raise.
Right.
So if we pass the budget as an example, if the budget was $194,000, we need to raise that in the year. If we consider that the $40,000 in building items is not going to be spent, we only have $154,000 to raise. But if we'd like to spend those items on the building, we need to raise $194,000. But we need to raise it during the year and not rely on the reserve. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Correct. Now, down at the bottom, I just put a couple things in there just for your FYI that I thought you might be interested in as a congregation. All of these numbers are as of last Sunday, by the way. They're not the full year, obviously. It's as of last Sunday. Our income was about $165,000. Our expenses was $144,000. And some of the things that we've donated to the FSM, we gave 666, whatever, to FSM. Oblation donations this year were almost 13,000. Donations, we spent 9,500. And the special projects we've already talked about, we took in 25,000 and we've spent 2,000 of it so far, and we have 23,000 left. So I just thought you would be interested in seeing that. Are there any questions about this? Does this clear up where your money goes when you mark it on your envelope, what it's used for, and the fact that these certain things, as we talked about with special projects, cannot be touched unless the whole congregation votes on it to give it to some other thing to use. So I can't pull out of one of these funds because we want to have something going on here or to pay the electric bill. I can't do that. You know, so that's where we are. I'm just, keep that in mind when we go over the budget, please. Rich?
I'm not sure the appropriate time for this question, but if we're getting ready to look at the various expenses for the next year's budget, this is where my thought process is. Do you have a feeling how our contributions are going overall, say for the last 6 months compared to the past? And the reason I ask that is it looks like our attendance is considerably down over the last few months, and I don't know how that's affecting donations. And of course, donations are going to be what we're basing our expenses on.
My overall observation is this branch is extremely, extremely gifted in giving money to the congregation, especially when we're asking for special needs type things for families or for things that need to be done. The congregation is extremely generous. But when those things are done, it takes the money away from the general fund, which pays the bills. And I understand that. I mean, I understand when people are given their money, they only have so much that they can give. And so which pot am I going to put it in is basically what it is, and they decide that when they put it in the offering. So yeah, we have done a lot of really good, wonderful projects and helped a lot of people this year. But it has decreased the general fund, and that's why I'm seeing this, I believe. Any other questions? Is that as clear as mud, or does that really help clear things up as to why things are the way they are? Yeah.
Just one question. What's the family needs? Because I've never seen that on the envelope.
That's Hendricks family.
So that was just for that special, okay.
Yeah.
Can we give to that at any other time?
I'm sorry?
Can we give to that regularly, or is that
Well,
just that one-time
that's
thing?
something we wanted to discuss at some point, that whether, once that, okay, back to what we talked about with special projects. It was donated specifically for the Hendricks family, so it can only be used for the Hendricks family, unless we come back as a congregation and said, we've done what we're going to do there, we have this amount of money left, can we transfer it to whatever? And set up a fund for family needs.
Okay.
A separate fund for family needs, but right now, that's the way it stands. Okay, any questions about this? Did it help or not? Yes, thank you, Janet. Okay.
Okay. Moving forward, Elsie, do we need to have a motion to start going down, or we can just start going down?
No, just, we can go through the whole budget, and then you vote, if there's amendments as we go, mark those as amendments, and then we, at the end, you will vote on the budget as amended. If that doesn't pass, you vote on the original motion to accept the budget, and then you start over.
We need to vote it to accept it, and then we can amend it.
Okay, yeah.
So
Yeah, I think,
do we hear a motion to continue to look at the budget?
well, you need a motion to accept the budget, and then we can amend it from there. So,
I so move.
let's,
Okay. Vaughn, so moving.
you second. Alan,
We will proceed with going through the budget. So we'll start with the administrative. Let's see, bulletins, miscellaneous, copier. In particular, the copier, you'll notice in yellow that is over the $1,500 budgeted of $2,140. So there has been an increase in the 2024 budget. E-tithe also has increased, and Pam, that e-tithe is the online giving. The online giving has been very, very successful on that. I think the average, Pam, is, yeah, it's worth having that on there. Ivan, you got your hand up?
What are we paying for on that?
What it is when, if you fill it out online, there's always the e-tithe fee.
Yeah.
A lot of people aren't paying the e-tithe fee.
So the branch is eating it?
That's right. So that's what that is. However, when we looked it up, when we were doing the budget and we looked it up, it more than compensates for us paying that amount.
As a clarification, the e-tithe fee is like if you're at a business and you use a credit card, they pay a credit card fee, and we're not paying a credit card fee, but we're paying the e-tithe company to process those credit card transactions.
And it's an option not to, but, I mean, we get quite a bit of donations online.
All right, and so that would be for a total for the administrative budget of $7,800. I'm going to proceed and vote in favor of that. Do I have any questions? Let's go ahead, Connie?
So the miscellaneous in that part was budgeted 2,000 and only 880 was spent? Is that correct?
Correct.
And you want to increase it to 2,500?
I do, because the administrative, the miscellaneous, it doesn't show in here, but they're in the hole.
They're in the hole? Okay.
Accept the whole budget.
So we'll just go down.
And so on.
Just keep going.
And if there's any changes, then we'll vote, then we'll accept that.
Okay.
Get a motion to accept that as a change. And then at the end, we vote for the budget as amended.
We'll just keep going.
All right. Thanks to my trusted Robert's rules, we will continue on down the budget as quickly as we can and vote on the budget or any amended items at the end. Or we can just vote for the whole budget right now.
I just had a really quick question on the copier. Was it that we had that much more usage out of it, or did it have issues?
It was not the issues. We have a contract with the people who, with the copy machine, that we do so many copies per month, and that's been straight across. What we get charged extra for is toner, if we use extra toner, and what we've been charged extra for is because we've been using a lot of colored copies, and we do not have that's not part of the contract, so it's using the toner to do colored copies. So what we probably need to do is not do as many colored copies. Just do black and white.
And obviously the bulletin is, the Sunday bulletins is used on the copy machine, so that's where a good bit of the color comes from. Janet?
I don't know which is cheaper. When I was doing the bulletins, I used to go to Mardell's and buy bulletin covers, and I would run black and whites through. So I don't know what's cheaper, to run color copies here for the bulletin covers, or just to buy the bulletin covers already down at Mardell's and run black and whites through. You know what I'm saying? As far as
Right.
the expense for the copier, trying to keep the costs, again, trying to keep
Sure.
those costs down.
We can check on that, I mean, and see if it would be cheaper.
Let me run this up to Bill.
Bill?
When we first set it up, I believe it was about 5 cents per color copy, and about less than a penny, the copy price for black and white. And so we based our budget on 700 color copies, and I don't remember, probably 2,000 black and white copies per month. And that's been kind of reversed. We have used a lot more color copies than we intended. So that's where a lot of the cost goes up. It's like 4 cents extra per page when you use color.
Okay. Janet?
With regards to the copy machine, have you, well, I guess this is directed to you, Bill. Have people been putting in the correct codes when making copies, and then do you allocate, okay, music department has spent this much on copy machine, nobody's using the codes?
I don't know whether they're using them or not, but they're not allocated to those departments.
We put the codes in just to get an idea of usage. We haven't kept track or studied those codes.
It doesn't really come out of somebody's specific budget. We had like Sunday school copies. They've made like, say, $50 worth of copies, or music department. So we don't take money out of the music department fund to pay for the copier.
The only time we did that this year is when we had the Bible school, Vacation Bible School, because there were so many of them printed that week, for that week, and we could definitely say, yeah, these came from the Bible school. So
Okay.
that was taken out of the copy fund and put towards the Bible school.
Okay.
But that was the only time that we could really definitely pinpoint it, that it was.
Okay, thanks.
All right, any other questions? So we will be voting the $7,800 on that. Let's move forward to men's ministry. Same budget amount as last year, $1,000. Any questions or issues with that? Seeing none, we'll move down to women's ministry, which has been budgeted for $3,050, which is just a slight increase. You see the breakdown there. Are there any questions on women's ministry? Seeing none, move down to activities. This is self-explanatory. The branch events, the branch retreat, and the revival that is held here is expenses for that. That is the same also, $9,500, same as last year. Any questions? Seeing none. Youth ministry. Zion's League, we've addressed that we just do not have a Zion's League. We have dropped the budget from $3,000 to $1,500, but that is just in case we get an influx of kids in and would do that. Kingdom Kids, and those are the two there for $2,000. Any questions or anything on that? Seeing none. Music ministry. This is a slight increase of $100. One of the things that I did find out is with the new piano, we can drop the piano maintenance. That does not, being an electronic piano, we do not need that. So we can adjust that amount of $1,000, yes. And that'll stay in music ministry, but just not a line item. $2,100. Anybody have a question on music ministry? We're on a roll. Technology ministries. This is, we have a couple of increases on that. As far as expenses for this year, those are in yellow with the CVLI license, CCL, whatever, license on that. That has been increased to $300. And the equipment and software was $800. We did spend more this fiscal year on that so far, so that's been increased, and that's the only thing there. So we have $6,300 for technology ministries. Anybody have any questions on that amount? Rachel?
I just wanted to ask Rich if we were needing anything replaced, like, because I know electronics and things were out, so if there was any upgrades that we were needing.
Rich?
It becomes an issue of what breaks down when. A lot of times we do have some basic plans that, for example, the speakers that are on the side, those are my personal speakers. We put them in to try and fill in the sound on the sides, which they do a really good job. People sitting on the sides don't have to hear a diminished sound now, but that's, as you can see, it looks pretty unprofessional. It was put up as a test, and we left it up because it works, but we would like to make that more permanent, so that's an issue I would like to move forward on sooner than later. Smaller expenses, various equipment does break, as you suggested, from time to time. We have to replace it. You just don't know when that's going to come into play. We have some more expensive pieces that would, if they would fail, we would have some issues at that point and may have to ask for some consideration on that. I don't have any great expansion plans in terms of huge expenses, but we have to have a little bit of a budget there to be able to get stuff when we need it, and then a cushion in case something does go down. We're doing a lot with our technology, and it takes a lot of pieces to make that work. But really, the only major project in the technology budget that I can think of right now is going to be those speakers. Pardon? I don't really know. I mean, it could easily be several $1,000s to get the speakers and mounted and all the wires hidden and run right. They are powered speakers, which means they're amplified at the speaker, and so those are a more expensive speaker. But until we're getting close to having the project get started, I mean, I haven't bothered to make an estimate on that yet. It's kind of a wish list, and if we can do it, great. But I don't like the look it is right now, so no one assume that I do. It's just what we did as a test, and we left it up because it works right now.
Yeah, we can always bring it to the congregation during the year for any special update. Elsie?
Well, underneath that, I see that there's $3,000 budgeted for sound equipment and $800 budgeted for equipment and software. And what exactly are those for, and should it be in that part of the budget, or do we need to budget separately just for those speakers?
To be honest, I put that because I didn't know where to put some of these things when I got them from Rich. You know, when we get the bills in for these things, I wasn't sure which one to put under. So I'm with you, the equipment and software and the sound equipment. I kind of looked at the two of them together, how much money we would need, and divided it between the two of them, which means that we can use it from either one of them, actually, for...
Well, I would consider those two categories all just one, personally.
Yeah,
because anything that has to do with getting the finished video or audio, whether it's out within our sanctuary or out on our live stream, really should just be under the same classification.
Right, other than the ones that we have to pay the bills for, the CVI and the CCLI and all of those are there.
Those
the other
are
ones that
specific things that we do every year, yeah.
So I guess then it answers my question that could come out of that budget, and we could increase that if we needed to when we get to the point of doing that.
Right.
Correct.
So that could be combined in one category of equipment.
Right. In my mind, it's the difference between projects that we want to do and then having a cushion for when things break. Right. And of course, a budget doesn't mean it's funded, because we could have a budget for $3,700 and only have $100 actually funded in that. So then it becomes an issue, what do we do if something major breaks? So I know of several small parts that I need to get sooner than later, and we're kind of making do as, you know, if you look back at the mess of wires I have here, it's not because I like it that way, but it's just what it turns into sometimes. So yeah, it's really hard. It's like if you're looking at a car, what it's going to cost you to run it for the next year, you have no idea what's going to break down, and that's the same idea here. Hopefully there isn't anything major, but we're putting a budget in place so we have some idea of what it could cost us.
So if it's all right with everyone, including me, we'll just put in equipment and software, $4,000, and eliminate the sound equipment and just put it all under one. Does that sound, Rich, is that okay?
Sounds reasonable.
Okay, so we're not changing anything except just the verbiage on that. Also, that's why I wanted Pam to let you guys know, as far as giving, tithing, and general funds on the envelope goes towards budgeted items. And that's what she was saying, that with a lot of resources going to other things, this is where we need to have prayerful consideration as far as what things like this come up to an unexpected cost, and that is where you do it, is the tithing and the general fund on the envelope goes to these things. All right, any other questions? Sunday school, that is supplies, vacation Bible school, scriptures for the baptismal class that we have used lately. That is increased by $100. Any questions? Moving forward, youth camp assistance is has been lowered from $1,500 to $1,000. And I think that's because we just don't have the amount of youth that we had before.
Tuition assistance, Larry?
Tuition assistance,
Just before the youth.
Yep. Sorry about that. Let's go ahead and use youth camp assistance since we're already talking about that, and I'll go back up. Any questions on that? $1,000. All right, moving up to tuition assistance. That is staying at $15,000, and that is for youth that are going to CPRS from Living Hope. Sarah?
I just wanted to say we were extremely surprised, pleasantly surprised, when we got the tuition bill and saw that we had received a donation and we're giving that monthly. And so I just wanted to say that I know the families here really appreciate that assistance because it is not cheap to send the kids to CPRS. And so I just wanted to express that I'm really, really grateful that the branch is doing that, and the families very much appreciate that.
Yes, I definitely would like to have that be a lot more, with a lot more of our kids going there. Let's see here. So we have budget items next, and that is janitorial equipment and services and supplies. That has not changed. That it remains at $10,000. Any questions on that? Lawn mowing and snow removal, that'll stay the same.
Kitchen. Skip.
Oh, lost a total kitchen. Sorry about that. $1,000. That has gone down. I'm not sure. I think probably the supply part has been at a level that we don't need to purchase more equipment in there. Pam, do you know?
The reason I changed that is because there was double buying. There were people in charge of the kitchen were buying for the kitchen, and people were buying the same type of things when activities would come up, and not looking in the kitchen to know that we already had it there and it wasn't needed for activities because we already had what they bought. And so it really stockpiled up. So that's why I put it as this. The kitchen supplies are for the kitchen, okay? And if they need to buy extra supplies that besides what's not in the kitchen that you don't need, then that would go under activities.
Any other questions? Missionary.
Snow removal?
Lawn mowing and snow removal, $5,000. That stays the same. Any questions? The missionary budget, foreign and the domestic. You see there in the yellow that the foreign ministry has increased a lot to inflation. increase in airline tickets, just any number of reasons. So we have increased that to $25,000 from 20, for a total of $30,000. Any questions?
Yeah, I just would challenge us to just consider for a minute whether foreign missionary work is 5 times more valuable to this branch than domestic outreach is. I know we have a number of people in this branch that are engaged in domestic outreach, pay for it out of their own pockets. And oftentimes when I would reach out, they're not, I think some of them are in need of support of this branch for their domestic outreach. But I guess I don't understand, I would just challenge us to consider that before we approved a budget for foreign missions at 5 times the level of our domestic missionary work.
We never had a budget for domestic before. We just had a budget for missionary, period, that covered anywhere they went, whether it was foreign or domestic. Last year, we spent more than our budget for foreign travel. That's why I increased that to the $25,000, and I added a line for domestic travel, for domestic missionary work of the $5,000. We never had that in the budget before. So that's a new line item for domestic travel, and I looked at what things were turned into me, because I had quite a bit turned into me for domestic travel, and I based it upon that. So if you think, if we think we need to increase it more for domestic, that's fine.
Well, I just wonder whether or not we are taking care of the center place and domestic outreach to the level that we should be. I'll just give you a testimony. I was in charge of domestic outreach for Texas, Oklahoma, and Louisiana over the last year. And the only testimony I have is, brothers and sisters, I planned a trip to Texas, and there's nothing left there but dust in the state of Texas. And that's where I came from. We used to have hundreds, if not thousands, of saints there. And now we're down to one of the branches that we used to have 200-300 people at retreats is down to 2 people. And the pastor's wife told me, don't bother to come. Don't even bother to come. One of the other, where Texas A&M University is, College Station, Texas, used to be a large branch. 1 person left. I called that lady. I said, can we come down? Please don't. Please don't bother. All I'm saying is, where you put your money is where your value should be. And I'm not saying that I think we're wasting our money in foreign fields. I think a lot of branches are spending money in foreign fields. What are we spending in domestic field? And I think a lot of the people that do that work, Vaughn just got back from a trip. He was gone for 2 weeks. I think it was his 2nd trip. Well, he's paying for it out of his pocket, So I don't know. I think it's worthy of our thought.
I agree. But there again, for missionary work, my understanding is $30,000, even if domestic would raise. Come before the congregation if we have that desire or that need, we can raise the budget for domestic. We need to know.
Well, and let me just raise, and I'm not questioning the $22,000 we spent, but I don't know how it got approved. I wasn't involved in the approval of spending that money, other than the fact it was in the budget. So if somebody requests it and Pam funds it, she has to fund it. But I'm wondering about the control.
Okay, I'll tell you, this brings up a good point. If you look at the right-hand column, it's got people's names on it. Those people are responsible for every one of those line items. So if you want to do something like, Rich, obviously, music, Joy Kane and Rhonda Schmidt, if you want to do something that involves buying something off of the music budget, you need to get their approval, and I need to know that they've approved it. The same with the missionary. It's been, always been, and that's what, I hate that when people say that Richard Neal is the 70 in this congregation, and he's the one that oversees all of the missionary outreach for foreign affairs. And when you appointed your people this year who was going to fill whatever area, Richard was appointed over outreach for foreign affairs, and Jack was appointed over domestic affairs. So that needs to go through those two people to okay whatever is being done. in
Elsie,
those
does our
areas.
pastor have a vote in that by bylaws?
No, pastor doesn't have much to say at all about the budget because it is a congregational item, and whatever they approve, then according to their desires, that's where the money is spent. And the pastor doesn't really have any veto power or anything else over the budget that's approved by the congregation.
And there again, I agree with you, Bob. I think that if the congregation, and we can do this next year, is aware of the need, I think the money will come, and that we would be able to adjust that in the future.
I mean, we can adjust it now.
Exactly.
It was 20,000 last year, but we spent more than that this year. The reason I increased it to 25. We could go back to the 20,000 and increase the domestic to 10,000. I mean, and still keep it at that level.
Well, how do we spend more than is approved in that budget?
We don't.
Well, we
never
did,
sp-
though.
No. We had money left over from the year before. That's why there was money in there to do it. The budget only called for 20,000, but we had money left over from the year before that we could spend it. And I'm telling you, whenever they go anywhere abroad, they always call me first and say, how much money do we have in the missionary fund? And I tell them, and they take a certain amount out so as not to drain the fund, that it is still there if it's needed for other purposes.
Okay, well, I'm just challenging the congregation to think, budget meeting is where you set you basically set your goals. So if we think foreign missions is 5 times more valuable to the mission of this branch than domestic missionary work is, then that's the way we've got the budget set.
Okay, who is first?
All right, let's go Vaughn, and then Becky.
Remember, if you approve a budget, the other side that rarely is discussed is the revenue. The revenue. And in a nonprofit, which we are, the revenue is what we need to think about, in that we need to raise the money to fund the budget. And if you remember what Pam showed you first, that in the current year, we're running a deficit of a little over $8,000 in our revenue over our expenses. And unless we raise that, we will end the year in a deficit. So no matter what we say in our budget, even if it was $500,000 in our budget, if we don't raise the revenue, it will not mean a thing. We have to raise the revenue to fund the budget. In some branches, they're limited in their budget to what they raised last year. So if they only raised $95,000 last year, that's all they could spend in the current year. Think about it.
Becky?
I don't think that it is a question of foreign is more important than domestic, but domestic is cheaper than foreign. It doesn't cost as much to drive to Texas as it does to fly to the Philippines, for instance. And I can't speak for everybody, but I think a lot of people, a lot of the priesthood just feel that that's part of their tithing, their responsibility, their whatever. So, I don't know.
All right.
Well, I'll belabor it just a little bit further. You know, Becky, and I'll use her for an example, works domestic ministry out of her own pocketbook. You know, if we funded that, Becky and Bree and Sarah and Monica, you think what we could be doing. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. But if, you know, if we don't put an emphasis on that in our budget to allow people to do more in our domestic ministry, the church in the center place is dying.
Anyone else?
But it's my choice. It's my choice to minister out of my own pocketbook. And it's other people's choices. It's the same thing. I mean, I could put the money into the church and the church could pay me back, or I could just pay for it.
That's an issue in almost every branch, is that, when I was pastor, I asked everybody, please put your donation in and then ask for a reimbursement so that the branch would actually have a true idea in accounting of what it costs to run the branch. And as far as ministry goes, I felt this way for a long time, but our missionary, I feel like, should be on a special offering situation where any time that Richard needs to go out of the country, just like the 70s way back when, you ask for the money for that particular missionary effort at that time, and then the branch votes whether or not to fund that missionary trip rather than have a budget. And that's the way it was in districts and in branches before. We would vote whether or not we would give so much money to a 70 that wanted to, you know, expand or go to a different area, and that how much we would fund them for that particular trip. And that might be something we want to think about, foreign and domestic, is that anytime those monies are requested, we have a meeting to vote on whether or not we want to fund that out of our missionary fund.
I don't know how this works in everybody else's brain, but in my brain, looking at all of our budget here, our projected budget of $194,000, out of that budget, we said 20,000 is, or did we make it 25? 25,000 is budgeted for foreign. To me, the entire rest of that budget is domestic.
True. Sarah?
In light of the comment that was just made by Brother Elsie, I do agree with the things that have been said about the foreign and domestic. I personally don't see why there needs to even be the differentiating. And to me also, if there's going to be a large expense for doing a foreign missionary effort, it does make sense to do a special offering for that, because that's a significant expense. Whereas sometimes domestic travel may be $200 or $300, and then a person feels really weird about coming to the branch for like a donation for that. So in light of that, I'd like to suggest an amendment that the foreign budget remain at $20,000 and the domestic budget be at $10,000 for a total of $30,000. That's my amendment.
Do I hear a second? Bob seconds. So we'll proceed with the vote. All in favor of Sarah's request to change the amount? And this is from, let me make sure, that 20,000 going from 25 to 20 and 5,000 to 10. All those in favor, raise their hand. All opposed? It's carried. All right, moving on. This is property maintenance and improvement. $18,430 last year, up to $40,400. I would ask that Bill, if you could address the reason on the increase on that, please. Because I know the questions will start coming anyway.
The building committee got together and talked about items that we would like to see accomplished this coming year. The items are listed there. Widening these doors over here so that we can get a lift through them without damaging the doors. That's a high priority anytime we want to bring a lift in here to do anything up high. We want to remodel the bathrooms. They're sadly needing painting and redoing the partitions and the vanities and the sinks and the faucets and those kinds of things, because they're still in the condition they were when this was a school. And we could stand some update there. We wanted to put sound deadening panels on the back to help the sound and the reverberation in this room. There's a room upstairs that we wanted to turn into a bathroom. It's a sink right now. And the Murphy stage idea was a stage up front that would be against the wall that you would lower down when you wanted to use it as a stage and put it back up when you don't want to use it. That would interfere with our cross and so forth, so we'd have to consider that. Building and grounds is just kind of every day, every month, every week stuff that we need, you know, like fixing the tractor or the mower or whatever. And we kept it the same as last year, I believe, on that one. So those are the items we talked about, and we put some numbers, some guesstimates to those items, and that's what makes up the $40,400.
Now, let me put a little, everybody calm down on this one. Because we live in the same household, because we work at the same church, none of those projects get done unless we have the money to do it in that particular account. It should be that way in every single line item, but in this line item, and that's why they're prioritized. Number one's the lift, so we have to do that when we need it. Number two is the doors. We can't do it until we have the $5,000 to do it. And then you go on to number three, remodeling the bathroom, $10,000. We aren't going to do that unless we have enough money in that account that's there available for them to do it. If you understand what I'm saying, it's not like, oh, we're going to spend $40,400 this year, because I can guarantee you we're not, because we're not going to have enough money in the account to do that. So if that just kind of, do you understand? Did I make that plain?
All right.
Because he comes to me every time and says, we want to start this project, how much money do we have? So we know whether we can do it or not.
And there again, with what Pam was saying at the beginning, tithing or general funds on the envelope
Right,
is what funds those.
right. And building fund.
And building fund.
Building fund goes to that too.
Correct,
So
okay.
if you enter in building fund, it goes to that also.
Okay. Any other questions? Janet?
Getting your exercise. Yes. Didn't we have the sound deadening panels in the budget last year to do them this year? Do we not have money?
No, we didn't have the money.
We didn't. We never had the money.
We never got to that priority.
It was just an idea that we wanted to do.
Right, but it never got to that priority with the money to do it.
Okay. I was talking with Connie. Are these things special project items? We used to have that cool thermometer deal over there. Are these other things, these
They
buildings?
were special projects, and that's one of the reasons that they never got funded, because we didn't have the money in the special projects to do it. And so we have money now in special projects if we choose not to do the pavilion that could go for some of these things if the congregation, as Vaughn said, decided to transfer that to this building fund, properties and whatever. I'm just saying, that's there that could be transferred to do these projects. When they were listed as special projects, they didn't get done.
All right. Moving on. Community outreach, $4,500, same as last year. Any questions? Ivan?
I didn't realize that you were moving on. I want to go back to special projects. So since we didn't vote on the pavilion, does that mean we have $25,000 and we can start knocking out some of this list for next year? Okay, Bill, I want to get those doors ordered. The doors over there, it's not just a lift access problem, it's a life safety issue. For security reasons, we have a bar across the panic devices, and that's a violation of the panic bars. You're supposed to just be able to touch them and go out, not undo or move anything else. So it's supposed to be one step. So I'd like to go ahead and get those on there if that's acceptable. Thank you for letting me talk about that. Are we now on community outreach?
Going since we had the $22,000.
We've already got $5,000.
What?
The doors.
Now we have the money to pay.
No, it was a question.
Something separate.
Okay.
So since we have 25,000 in special projects, we can start doing special projects, right?
We don't, okay, we need to get this terminology real plain. We don't have special projects. The only special project we have is the pavilion. These are in the budget. Special projects is not a budgeted item. It is a non-budgeted item because people donated specifically to that. So your oblation is not in the budget, debt reduction is not in the budget, FSM is not in the budget because those are all donated specifically to those things. Special projects was specifically for whatever special projects. This is under the budget for property maintenance and improvement. So, what I'm saying is, and we've already talked about, you're talking about the doors, right?
Right.
We have $5,000 in that fund already right now that you can go ahead and do them right now. Because for this year, we have that amount of money in there that's available right now to do it. And that will carry over to next year. Now, if we vote to not do the pavilion, yes, then you could vote to transfer all that $25,000 to this budget, property maintenance and improvement. You could vote to do that.
Okay, so we voted down the pavilion, but we didn't vote to
Did we vote
reassign
it
it.
down?
We voted it down.
Completely.
So,
Okay.
but we didn't vote to reassign the money, right?
Right. Which will be down here if you want to vote to do that, but to get rid of that money, to transfer it into whatever fund you decide you want to, or general fund or whatever, it would,
Well, in light of what you've already said about the budgeting and the person responsible, the heads of the committees. This would be a question for the building committee to talk about.
Right.
To say, okay, now that if we need money for whatever project, whatever they've determined as the priority, right? Not necessarily something to bring here until the building committee says, oh, we need $10,000 because the doors are more expensive or whatever, right? Then that would come up from the building committee to say, hey, we need to take $10,000 out of X fund to put it in there. Am I misunderstanding?
If you transferred the 25,000 to this, that would leave you what, $15,000 left, you know, in the $40,000 that you would need, and that's less than we had last year for the budget.
Vaughn?
I think if we approve the budget, we have time to talk about something else, because this motion's on the floor, and we really can't take up other motions while we're in the middle of this. I'm sorry.
Right.
No, not yet. Right. Just a point of order.
Buck?
I was going to say that if we had to transfer the funds, that would have to be another motion altogether, separate from everything that's going on right now.
Right.
That deals with special projects.
Bill?
I would like to make an amendment to our budget, which really, now that I think about it, doesn't sound like it's going to work. Because I was going to move special projects money into this item of property maintenance improvements.
That's what we were just talking about. We can't do that.
Can't do that.
Not right now.
Okay.
All right. Elsie, did you want to say? Okay. All right. In the interest of time, I would say that we will look at the rest of the budget. The operating reserve, $6,600. The church mutual insurance and tax, $9,000, which is just $500 more.
You've skipped community outreach.
The operating reserve. Would I skip?
I would like to speak to community outreach. I have a question about the Neighborhood Networks program.
Okay.
I'm concerned about its status, its future, its purpose, its vision, its mission. I don't even know who's in charge of it. After all the activities, there's pallets and boxes left on the front porch and mess here in the building. And when the program first started, there were supposed to be classes and other things that were done, and that's not being done. It's just basically a food pickup. Some of the people don't even come to get their own stuff. They send a proxy, and I'm not sure if that meets the purposes or goals of the program. And I just see this as something that's degraded over time, and I'm wondering if it's still viable to keep funding.
Buck?
As far as the Neighborhood Networks program is still going, I'm in charge of it and have been doing the ordering and everything else. Unfortunately, things have been left behind because right now I don't have a vehicle, and I've been the only one, and LaDonna are the only ones that have been picking this stuff up and cleaning it up after these projects are done. We've asked for help from the congregation several times with this project and can't seem to get any. And the only ones that do help are the ones that pick up the food, bring it up here, and help set things up for the projects. And then it's left up to us, who are in charge of it at night, to get all the trash and everything out the next day. And sometimes, with me being sick over the last few months and stuff like that, it hasn't been getting done because nobody else is stepping up to help.
I would just like to say, in my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Buck and LaDonna, there's been a turnover in the people. It's not the same. It's done a lot of good for a lot of people.
Yes.
And it's helped people get on their feet, so it's not the same people who are coming all of the time. There's new people coming in while other ones are able to get out of it and be on their own and do their own. Now, am I wrong about that?
No, there's been several families that's come through and used the project, and then it's enabled them to be able to get out and get other jobs and start making more money and move on. And we've had new people come in to it that really needed it and are still in need of it. And it's, you know, I brought this up to them. It's just something that we want to do. And as far as the classes and stuff taking place in the project, that is still happening. There's still classes going on during the meetings and things. But if anybody wants to provide a class or wants to come and demonstrate how to do something to the people, we're more than happy to have you. It's been a struggle to keep it going, and we have been keeping it going and have been up on it. In fact, we have an inspection coming up on December 12th for the freezers and the kitchen and everything else.
When we're talking about domestic missionary work, I see this as part of the domestic missionary work. I think this is an amazing thing that our congregation is doing for the community.
There's also people that's involved in neighborhood networks that this is about the only church thing social that they have going.
Okay, any other questions? So for community outreach, $4,600. The operating reserve, $6,600. $9,000 for electricity, water, sewer, and trash. No, excuse me. The church mutual insurance and tax, that's the $9,000, which is up from last year's $8,500, $500. $30,000, which is the same for total utilities, $500 for security. Zion's Ridge is $6,000. Can we vote on that? Is there any questions, I should say, on any of those? Janet?
No.
Church mutual.
It says property tax because up until last year, we were being charged property tax, and they've got it
For the house.
so that, yeah, that we don't have to do it anymore, and I just forgot to take that word out. No.
Okay. Hearing no questions, we are going to vote on the $194,350 budget for 2024.
It's been changed to 193,350 because we took out the 1,000 and under the music. So the total now is 193,350.
193,350. We're saving money. All those
You're
approved-
voting, make it clear, Larry, that we're voting on the budget as amended, not on the budget.
Correct. Okay. Thank you, Elsie. We are voting on the amended budget of 193,50. 350. Those in favor? Those opposed? All right. 193,350 is our 2024 budget. What do we do next?
Do you want to entertain a motion now to transfer the special?
Okay.
funds?
Do we want to entertain a motion to carry over the special projects to the budget? Ivan?
I move that we carry over the special project money to the list of building committee special itemized list there to the tune of $15,000, and that we use $10,000 to buy a van for domestic outreach.
You use 10,000 for what?
For outreach. Say it again, Ivan.
I want to move 15,000 of the special projects to begin funding the itemized list of the building committee, and I want to use 10,000 of the special project money to buy a van for domestic outreach.
I have Dana.
$10,000 for van
Right,
and $15,000
for the
yeah, building fund.
building fund.
Right. Okay.
Do we have a second for that, Larry?
Is there a second?
Is there a second? Thank you, Bob.
No, he didn't second.
No, I'm just saying, is there a second in general, everybody? Do I hear a second on the amendment,
Yeah, on the motion.
on the motion? Oh, that's Dale. I just saw your hand there, Dale. Dale, second?
What was the question, Larry? Discussion? Or was there a second?
There was a second. Dale second.
Discussion?
Let's have some discussion.
He's got the floor.
I would be opposed to this on the grounds that, number one, I'm not done with the pavilion, that it's in there for special projects, that we need to revisit that. Number two, I think this should be discussed at the building committee level before we bring it before the congregation to transfer that much money. And I would like to see, if we want a van, proposal for the use of that van and the necessity of it. So for those reasons, I would be opposed to this motion at this time.
Okay?
Well, I'm opposed to a 15 by 20 pavilion. That's not much bigger than a parking stall, and I just don't know how many people you're going to get in there or what needs
Point
that's
of
going
order.
to serve.
That's discussion that's already been.
Well, you talked to it. You said you were not done with the pavilion.
No, I was addressing your motion, not in favor of. I just said we're not finished with it at the building committee level.
I think we're finished with it as far as the branch goes. The branch decided not to do it. The branch didn't table it.
No, the
or
branch
say-
decided not to do that particular building the way it was presented.
I disagree. As far as the van goes, we had quite a number of people that went to Kirtland last year. We had people that went to Reunion in Pennsylvania. We're going to have teams of people that go out and do missionary work here domestically after the first of the year when we get some contacts made. So this is why I think the van would be a good idea, so we're not always renting one or having people use their own vehicles.
We'll have a little discussion, but we have the ability to vote whether to transfer the money out of the special funds. Where are we now? I mean, we can vote on it? Hearing the discussion?
Move to the question.
Okay.
You have to call for a second on that.
The second, let's go with Sarah. So, we're going to vote on transferring the money from the special projects. All those in favor of transferring the money out of the special projects to the budget, as said to the van and the building committee, building project, raise their hand. See two. All those opposed. It is defeated. Sarah?
I think
It would just be really helpful to have a lot more information about a van because of how expensive everything is. It'd be really good if we had maybe some really detailed information on what we'd be looking at for mileage and insurance and all that kind of thing. And then having a chance to understand what we'd be transferring the money for. That may be a good thing next time we meet.
True. I think, and as pastor, I think it's like my responsibility to communicate these things and give opportunity for the congregation to be aware of the need for to transfer this money to. I agree. So where are we?
That would be a
We're done. We voted on the budget. We've rejected the amendment. We are, do I need to get a second? All right.
Make a motion to close the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Motion to close the meeting. Raise your hands. Yes, thank you. I appreciate your guys' time. We have to go through this process in order to go through and fund those projects that we need to do. So your time is valuable, and I appreciate you guys coming out. And we will inform you on future things that we're going to be doing or want to do. Can we have a closing prayer? Becky, can you give a closing prayer?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity, because I wanted to say, let's congratulate Larry on his initiation. Good job.
Thank you.
Our Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day, and we thank you so much for this congregation. Lord, I know that we've had some differing of opinions, but I thank you so much that we love each other so much that we know that the process is more important than the actual projects and dollars spent. Lord, I thank you for each one that is here. I pray that no one would leave this place with a hardened heart, but that we would leave here in love with you and in love with each other. I pray blessing upon us as we leave this place. In Jesus Christ's name, amen.